We have two eminent speakers today, Garima Jindal and Vaibhav Jindal, both of them having very wide experience in startup legal compliances. So I will introduce our speaker, Garima Jindal. She hold a past experience in working with KPMG in indirect taxation line of service, and she possesses a rich experience in the field of indirect taxation, audit, assurance service, corporate financial advisory service, and her expertise lies in dealing with top level decision makers, identifying and resolving critical problem areas, and delivering on client commitments. A versatile professional with focus on delivering integrated solutions to the client through collective team efforts and backed by an entrepreneurial attitude and analytical mind. So, welcome, Garima. Welcome to Startup Track webinar series.
Yeah. Thank you, Akhil. Thank you for this,
Yes,
for the
I think
introduction. With me, I have my partner CA Vaibhav Jindal also here joining us for this session. Like if you can just give us the intro, so we will begin with this session.
sure. I think we can start now. Yeah. Yeah, so I will quickly introduce Vaibhav Jindal to sorry for that, I completely missed out that. So Vaibhav is along with Garima Jindal, and Vaibhav began his early career with a multinational accounting firm RSN Astute Consulting and was a part of assurance and taxation line of service. Later, Vaibhav he ventured into a newly emerging law of insolvency, and he has prior working experience with following multinational firms like BDO Restructuring Advisory and PricewaterhouseCoopers and Professional Service LLP. So he holds a diverse multidisciplinary service and is currently acting as a partner to a leading firm in India in the domain of business restructuring services. So welcome to Vaibhav Jindal. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Akhil.
Thank
And
you.
I
Yeah.
welcome all the participants. And I hope that this session is going to be a very learning experience to all. So basically, this seminar is to bridge the gap between the finance aspect with which many of the startups, I believe, face challenge because this is something that startups face have a bit of queries and have a bit of ambiguity in respect of how to proceed in with the startup and how to uh, have a solution as far as the finance aspect is concerned. So I welcome all the participants.
Yes, I think we can move on to the presentation right now.
Yeah, sure.
So, friends, we will start with, first of all, what are the different types of business registrations that can be done by the startups. See, basically, they have been allowed different types of registration, like proprietorship is there, partnership is there, a private limited company is there, then There is, we have a LLP also through which registration can be done. But the question again arises कि proprietorship करना चाहिए, partnership करना चाहिए, LLP करना चाहिए, private limited company करना चाहिए. So first of all, I'll give a brief about the proprietorship and partnership. What is proprietorship and partnership? And then we'll discuss in detail about the private limited companies and also about the limited liability partnerships. So first of all, what is proprietorship? Friends, proprietorship is, we can't say that it is a separate entity that is being created. It is basically supposingly that I am a person and I'm conducting business, and I'm conducting business. No other person is there with me. So all the transactions are done under my PAN only. I am the individual person who is doing that business. So we say that a person is conducting business under proprietorship. So for taxation purpose, if we go, the income of that owner will be taken as the taxable income. The ownership of the firm, the drawback of the proprietorship is कि कल को अगर मुझे अपना business transfer करना है and I am doing it under proprietorship, so can be transferred? No, that business cannot be transferred to another person. Further, foreign investors, they cannot fund in this venture.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you're audible. Is there any?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Can you keep it in English if you don't mind? Because like I'm not so comfortable with Hindi. Sorry for it.
Just a second, please allow me a pause. Just a second. There is some issue with my audio. Okay. Now the important point about the proprietorship is that foreign investors, they cannot fund in this venture. Like if we want ki some foreign investors should be there, so they are allowed in LLPs, they are allowed in partnerships, but they are not allowed in proprietorships. Foreign investment is also allowed under, like if we go with private limited companies, they are also allowed, but for proprietorships, they are not allowed, as can be seen. Then further, if we see that about the recognition of startups, so the Department of Promotion Trade, DPIIT, this is not allowed that if you create a startup, like many people are of the idea कि in initial years we will continue the startup in our own name. So friends, DPIT has said कि अगर आपको 5 साल under proprietorship हो गया and you're continuing the business in your own name, then also your experience will not count. It will not count as a startup. Then moving forward, if we create it as a partnership, so what is a partnership? It is basically like I'm the person and some another person is also there. With that person, I am doing the business. So we have entered into a partnership. Similarly, now what is the income tax to be paid? The income tax to be paid is at the rate of 30% for a partnership. Then a partnership can only be listed as a startup in India if it is less than 5 years of its age from its incorporation. Meaning thereby कि अगर 5 साल से ज़्यादा की partnership हो गई है, like supposingly we have developed a partnership today and then like 6 years, 7 years post that we ask कि भाई ठीक है as a startup हम recognition के लिए चले जाते हैं, now we are ready for that. So what do they say? They say कि if it is less than 5 years of age, only then it is allowed. So this is a brief point about proprietorship and partnership. Very few entities they consider that we should register our startup as proprietorship and partnership, and we also do not suggest any startup to be incorporated as proprietor or to be incorporated as partnership form. Now, if we can see that in order to get DPIIT recognition, what they have allowed, they have said that you can be incorporated as a private limited entity, you can be incorporated as a partnership or LLP, we will recognize you. But the most important thing is that we should consider our entity to be registered as private limited LLP or as a partnership firm only. As a LLP or as a private limited company, not as a partnership firm. Because we will discuss in the ongoing slides what are the benefits that if we are registering as a private limited entity or we are registering it as a LLP. So going forward, we can see first of all, here I will discuss what are the differences and simultaneously we'll be covering the differences between private and LLP, and you will judge that आपको going forward अपनी entity which you are planning to create, you should go it with as a private limited company or you should go with it as a limited liability partnership. So first of all, friends, first question which comes about the equity funding. So the question is that a private limited company जो होती है that can raise funds and that can raise funds very easily through the issue of shares, and thereby it can attract equity funding which is essentially for growing your business. However, if we come in the shoes of an LLP, it cannot issue shares and therefore कल को अगर कोई हमारे पास equity funding investments होती हैं, so it becomes very challenging. However, in this private limited company, it is a very easy thing to be done. Then secondly, what are the partners and owners? कि कल को अगर मुझे private limited company बनानी है, तो how many people minimum I should have? So basically, what they have said कि you can have 2 directors, but the number of directors in the company cannot be more than 15 directors. Whereas if we come an LLP, it has said that you should have minimum 2 partners. Like there also, the requirement is of 2. Here in directors also, in private limited company also, the requirement is of 2. In LLP, there is no restriction on the maximum number of partners. Ki if like we are planning ki there can be multiple partners, so there can be many partners which can join in an LLP. However, in a private limited company, we can have members. Members are the persons who will be the owners of our company, who will hold the shares. So they cannot be more than 200. So this is a difference between private and LLP. LLP, there is no restriction. In private, there is a restriction. Because we are going to create an entity in which we see our future. So we should know these basic things. Ki how many maximum people can be there to join our entity. Then a very important aspect which is covered about audit. If we create an LLP, it is not that in initial years, they ask you to get your books of accounts audited by a CA. There has been a condition that अगर आपकी turnover 40 लाख से ऊपर की हो जाती है और your partner contribution जो है वो exceed करता है 25 lakh rupees से, then only you are required to get audit. However, अगर मैंने एक private limited company has been incorporated, it asks us to get audit whether there is a turnover in the company or not. अगर आपने private limited company incorporate कर दी, you have to get your books of accounts audited, irrespective of whatever is the turnover of the company. So private limited में audit कराना mandatory हो जाता है. LLP में audit liability comes only after few conditions have been fulfilled. Like day one से अगर turnover नहीं है तो ऐसा नहीं है कि आपको audit कराना ही पड़ेगा. जबकि अगर company बनवा लोगे, then you have to get your books of accounts audited. Okay, sure. I'll just keep it in English. Easier exit plans, yes. Supposingly, I am the investor, like I am the owner of that company, and now I want that this company should be taken over. So Exit plans are much easier if we go in a private limited entity. So the exit plans are very easy. However, in LLPs, it is a bit difficult to exit, because being the partner of that entity, it becomes very much onerous. However, in private limited, since we are just holding the shares of that company, so the shares are easily transferable. And when we transfer our entire shares, the private limited company's exit plan becomes very, very easy. Like if I'm the owner of that company and I want to exit from that company, it will become very easier for me to exit through the transfer of shares. Then moving forward, what is the compliance burden? The next question comes, okay, like registration, that is fine, that we have incorporated, number of partners we have done. But then what about the compliances? We will discuss in detail the compliances to be done by a private limited as well as LLP. But upfront, we can say that private limited has more compliances as compared to LLP. Then comes about the dividend distribution tax. Supposingly, our company does good, and now comes the turn that to the shareholders we have to give dividend. So this is an additional compliance on the company, that you have to pay dividend distribution tax. However, in an LLP, it is not payable. In an LLP, this dividend distribution tax is not to be paid. So private limited company here is a bit challenging, because dividend distribution tax becomes payable. Then comes the number of meetings. Like as per Companies Act, a private limited company has to conduct specified number of meetings in a particular year. Like it has to have 4 board meetings, which should have like having a gap of 120 days between 2 meetings, and there should be a general meeting which is to be conducted. However, in LLP, there is no such requirements. Like board meetings, they have to conduct, and they have to also furnish the information to MCA about the meetings which are going to be conducted. Then from the investment perspective, like if in a private limited company an investment is to be done, there is also a criteria which is being specified by Companies Act 2013. However, in LLP, there is no such criteria. So in this way, the LLP becomes an easier one. There is no investment criteria, there is no meeting criteria, there is no dividend distribution tax to be paid. Then compliance burden comparatively, like if it is 80% in companies, it is 50-60% in LLPs. Not much gap is there, but yes, LLP has a bit lesser compliances as compared to private limited companies. Then going forward, if we see in detail about the private limited companies, I will just brief about that. If we are going to incorporate a private limited company, supposingly we decide that yes, I have to create a private limited company, what all compliances we have to do under Companies Act, under income tax, under GST, what all the things are to be done. We'll begin from the scratch. Supposingly, we decide that we have to create a private limited entity, private limited company. What are the things? What is the first step we have to take? Friends, the first step would be that initially we'll obtain the DSC, which is called as the digital signature. This is a very mandatory and a very basic requirements. The DSC has to be obtained for the directors. Then the second requirement will be, the second step will be to obtain the director identification number, which is a number. Like supposingly, I have decided that me and Weber are going to create a company. So before applying for the private limited company registration, first of all, we both are required to have a DSC. Both are required to have DSC. Some addressing question, just a second. If a company is not making any revenue, is it suitable to register the company or not? Or register only when there is a positive cash flow? There is a question that if a company is not making any revenue, is it suitable to register the company or not? Or register only when there is a positive cash flow? Now, the question is that when to register that company. So let me just complete this private limited company part. Then I'll just cater to that question that when I should get my entity registered. So moving forward towards private limited company, first is that if we have to create a private limited company, both the directors should have the digital signatures. Both the directors should have the DIN numbers. Then the company's name approval. Whatever the company you are planning, we have to apply for that name because two entities cannot have the same name. So first of all, whatever the name we are planning, we have to get it approved from the government. That listen, we are planning to create a company with this name. So they'll give an approval that yes, you can create. There is no other entity with the same name. So when the approval is obtained, we apply, we fill a form for that company incorporation. And there is a single form which is to be filled, and with that form only, we get our income tax registration also. That is, we get the PAN also, and we get our GST number also allotted with that registration only. So the process is very simple. The process is being simplified that only the directors, if are required, they are required to get the digital signatures. Then they're required to apply for their director identification number. Name approval is there. And the last step would be just applying for that company. And with that, we'll get our GST numbers. We will get our income tax numbers simultaneously. So this has been very simplified. Then comes what is the minimum capital requirement? Like supposingly if we are planning to create a company, is it that we have to necessarily invest 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees, 3 lakh rupees in that company? Or is it that without any investment also, I can apply for a company? I can create a company. So friends, it is that initially earlier it was a requirement that the directors or the company should have a minimum capital of 1 lakh rupees. However, this requirement has now been removed by Companies Act Amendment which came in 2015. So now I can create a company, and in that company, it would be completely okay if I do not have any capital. I do not invest any funds from my own pocket. So this is the part about the minimum capital requirement, because many people have a thinking that if you are going to create a company, yes, there is an initial investment, like this much amount we have to invest. No, the minimum capital requirement has been completely removed. However, there is a thing which is called as authorized capital, which means just that in future, if you want to raise capital, so how much maximum capital you want to raise in that company, so that is called as authorized capital, and we need to fill this in our application. So, and this is why here comes the filing fees of the companies. But basically, what happens is authorized capital is something which is not that you have to invest. It is how much how much capital the company can raise in future. Supposingly, I fill in the form that my authorized capital is 10 lakh rupees. So today I'm not putting a penny in that company. But in future, I can raise the capital in that company up to 10 lakhs only. That is the bar. So based on that, when I file my application, in that it says that your charges will be based on the amount of authorized capital we have in that business. So basically, if my authorized capital is up to 1 lakh rupees, my initial registering cost of my company would be 5,000 rupees. Like this is the fees which has to be paid to the government. Like many people ask, if we create a company, what are the charges? So this is the charge. If you create the company with an authorized capital of 1 lakh rupees, you have to pay to government 5,000 rupees. If you create a company whose authorized capital is between 1 lakh and 5 lakh, you have to pay like the charges I have shown in this table, that per lakh the charges would increase. So this is the fees which is prescribed by the government, because many people say that some people are creating companies in dismiss charges and some people are creating dismiss charges. The difference in creation of the company comes depending upon the authorized capital which we are allowing, which we are filling in our application. So this is a very important part, because this authorized capital is, what is the meaning? The meaning is that how much capital in future maximum that can be raised by your company, and then depending on it, using it, the fees would be decided. So now catering to the questions which we have, in private limited company, what is the income tax, TDS, GST and audit that is to be done? In income tax, a private limited entity is required to pay income tax at the rate of 25%. And then there is a cess which is levied at 4% if the turnover of that company does not exceed 400 crores. So, like private limited companies, the tax would be 25%. And the income tax return, how many times the return is to be filed? The income tax return is to be filed just once in a year. Then comes an important thing which is missed by many persons, that is called as TDS. See, if we are going to create any entity, whether it is private limited or whether it is an LLP, this is the thing which is missed by most of the people, which is called as TDS. TDS is a separate compliance under income tax, which is to be complied by us if it is getting applied. Like if I'm paying a salary to a person and that salary exceeds the taxable limit. So, being an employer, I am required to deduct the TDS, and for that TDS, I have to obtain a separate registration. I have to obtain a separate TDS number for that person. Then, if I obtain a separate TDS number, what things have to be complied? I have to deduct the TDS. I have to deposit that TDS every month. And also, I have to do the quarterly filing of my TDS return. The income tax return is filed just once. However, the TDS return, that is filed quarterly. Then comes goods and service tax. Goods and service tax are very important tax to be studied, and the newly important tax. First of all, the question comes, why goods and service tax is levied or when it is levied? Can anybody tell that whether it is mandatorily required to get registered under GST, or is it something criteria is there that no, GST comes on a particular time period only? If anybody could just suggest. Is GST to be applied on every transaction, like every, if you
It's
create
not
a,
compulsory, ma'am, I guess.
it's not compulsory, exactly. It's not compulsory, it's basically a certain criteria government is given to us that, listen, if the turnover, if we are a service provider, like I'm in, supposingly, since majority are engineers, so supposingly we are dealing into services only. So the government has simplified the rule and it has said that, see, if your turnover is exceeding 20 lakh rupees, then only get registered under GST. And if I'm trading in goods, like I'm just selling goods, so they say that you have to get registered under GST if your turnover is more than 40 lakh rupees. But going forward, I'm going to discuss a very important thing, that why we suggest people to get registered under GST. It is very, very important aspect to be known, that why it is said that yes, we should get registered under GST. And this is the thing that many small businesses, though their turnover is very less, their turnover is 5 lakhs, their turnover is 10 lakhs, but yes, they are getting registered under GST. We'll ponder upon this during the coming slides. The third aspect, the next aspect about private limited company, about the audit, I've already discussed that audits, this is a very mandatory requirement. We do not have any option with us that we want to get the audit done or not. It is mandatory that if you are going to create a private limited entity, we have to get our books of accounts audited. Then comes the next aspect, which everybody wants to know, कि company, we have created the company. Now let us know what are the compliances to be done. Few compliances are we have to file the income tax return. Next compliances, we have to file the GST returns. If TDS is applicable, we have to file the TDS. We have to get the books of accounts audited. Then lastly, there are few forms which are to be filled over company's portal, over company's website, which is about the den of the directors. There is an annual filing, annual return. There is filing of accounts. There is approval of accounts, and there is appointment of auditor. These are 5-6 forms which are to be filled if we are creating a company and we have to fulfill these compliances. So this was all about my private limited company, the process to get incorporated, the minimum capital, which we should consider. There is no minimum capital requirement. That is a very important point, that without investing a particular fund, you can get yourself registered as a private limited entity. Then these are the different business registrations which are to be done by that private limited entity. And lastly, the companies act compliances which also have to be fulfilled by that company. So I'll just quickly take up the few questions which have been shared with me over chat. Can we go for LLP? Catering to the question of Shreya, she said, can we go for LLP as of now and then convert to private limited later and when we have more funds, etc.? Yes, definitely. They have given us an option that we can convert our LLP to a private limited company. Definitely, there is an option. But going forward, over the slides, when we move on, I will suggest, or you yourself can judge, that there is not much benefit if we create an LLP. And the important point would be the tax rate. Friends, if you would have just pondered, the tax rate would be, what is the tax rate that we have set for the companies? The government has specified, the government has made the amendment and they have said that if the company does not have a turnover exceeding 400 crores, then the tax is to be paid at the rate of 25% only. However, if we see under LLP, the tax rate is 30% plus 4% cess. And here the tax rate is 25% plus 4%. So there is a difference of 5% income tax. Then catering to next question. So I have catered to question of Shreya that yes, it can be easily converted. If a company, catering to question, Vibhav, if a company is not making any revenue, is it suitable to register? Yes. Now the question many startups come to, that when we should get ourselves registered as a startup. The important part to this is at what stage our product is. Why we should get our startup registered earlier. We should get our startup registered earlier. First is that if we get our startup registered, it becomes very much easier for us to ask for funding from the investors. Secondly, whenever a startup is registered, after 3 years or 4 years, we can say that our startup is an entity which is drawn from an year of past 5 years of experience. Our product is 5 years old. Then, moreover, if we apply for loan also, if we ask for loan, then it becomes very easy from the banks also, because they recognize a registered entity as more credible. It is very much creditable. They easily give loans to the entities which are registered. So it all depends on us that whether we should get it registered only when we are incurring revenue, or whether we should get our entity registered even though we are not incurring revenue, but we should get self-registered, because the important part is that as older our startup is, the experience, the registration, from the date it gets incorporated, it holds an experience. And moreover, if we pitch for investments, if we pitch for the funding, the investors are looking for those startups majority which are registered under any act. So, as per our opinion, you should get your startup registered at the earliest possible, because it becomes naturally very much creditable to give funding and to give loans to that entity. Can that next question, catering to the question of Vikram, can that authorized capital be updated in the future? Of course, yes. Supposingly, today I'm incorporating a company and I have said that the authorized capital of that company is 1 lakh rupees and I have incorporated that company paying the fees of 5,000 rupees. Then down the line, if I want to change that authorized capital to 10 lakhs or 50 lakhs, yes, that authorized capital can be changed. Next, catering to the question of Shreya, can you repeat the part of TDS? Yes, of course I can. TDS is tax deduction at source. A very simple concept. I'm the employer, I'm a private limited company. Now, there are 10 people who are working under my in my company and I'm paying them a salary of 10 lakh rupees. So, as you all are aware, if you guys would have been in jobs, so your TDS must have been deducted by your companies also. Similarly, in that way, if I'm going to be a company now and I'm paying salaries to my employees, and if that salary is more than 3 lakh rupees, which is the tax bar, to pay income tax. So if I'm paying salary to my employees, so I have to deduct TDS of that employee. So I have to deduct that TDS being a company and I have to pay that TDS to the government. So this is another compliance which is to be done by companies if they're employing people. And it is not that it is only for companies, this is for LLPs also. This is for partnerships also, that you have to obtain a TDS number also. Being a company, you have to obtain TDS number. This TDS number requirement applies only when I have somebody whose income is exceeding. Only then you will be required to deduct TDS or obtain a TDS number, otherwise it would not be required. Then moving towards the concept of LLPs, this is another thing which is very much to be catered, because this is a booming question of startups that I should go for LLP or I should go with partnership. With private limited entity. So now LLP, first of all, let us look about the incorporation process. This is much more similar to that of private limited entity. First is that we have to obtain the DSC. Then an important step which is not there in LLP is that in startups, in private limited company, we were required to obtain a director number. Like I can just scroll that to that slide. See, here the second point was, फर्स्ट आपको डीएससी लेना है, देन आपको डायरेक्टर के आइडेंटिफिकेशन नंबर का एक फॉर्म सेपरेटली अप्लाई करना है. However, this requirement is not in LLP. They say no, there is no specific requirement. See, and then we'll reserve our name. Similarly, like companies में करा था, we'll reserve our name and then there will be income tax and GST PAN number that will be allotted. Then minimum capital requirement. Is there any minimum capital requirement in LLP? Again, the same answer. Similarly, like in private limited companies, there is no minimum requirement of capital to be contributed. You can create the LLP easily. Now the important part is, like, if we are going to create an LLP, what would be the cost? The cost would be 10% of the cost of private limited companies. Why so? Because the government has said that if your contribution does not exceed 1 lakh rupees, you're required to just pay rupees 500, which was in private limited companies, it was 5,000 rupees. Then moving forward, in income tax, what would be the income tax rate? What would be the income tax rate? The income tax rate would be 30% plus 4%. This is the major part which we should focus upon. That in companies, if we are going to create a private limited company, the tax is 30%. The tax was 25%. However, if we are going to create an LLP, the tax is 30%. So there's is a very good difference. Then comes TDS. This part is same, like LLP and private limited both have to do the same things. There is no such difference. Goods and service tax also, the compliances for private limited company and the compliances for LLP both is same. Then comes about audit. As already said, in companies, in private limited company, you have to appoint an auditor. You have to get the books of accounts audited. However, if you are going to create an LLP, there is no such mandatory requirement to get the books of accounts audited. Then, going forward, what are the compliances to be done? Yes, there are compliances in LLP also. It is not that easy. But the compliances are like, as I've said, there is a difference of 10 to 20% lesser compliances in LLP as compared to the compliances in a private limited company. Then here I have catered to that question, that can we convert an LLP into a private limited entity? Of course, yes, we can convert. The government has given us an option that we can convert an LLP to private limited. And to your important notice, we can convert a private limited company also into an LLP. This is another thing which the government has recently brought, that many people are much more attracted towards LLP now. So they have converted their companies to LLP. So this was all about LLPs. So I'll just cater to the question. Catering to the question of Neuro, DPV Singh. Kindly suggest at the end for beginner entrepreneurs like us, which registration is more easy, less complex, safe, LLP or private limited or public limited. Three options are there. LLP, private limited or public limited. I will never say as a public limited, you cannot create yourself also. Public limited are the entities which are listed. So never go for public limited. First of all comes private limited or LLP. So in our view, it would be much easier if we go by a private limited company. All depends on your vision. Many people say we are not incurring much profits, so 5% tax rate does not matter to us. So there we say that go with LLP creation, because you are not going to have any profits, 30% tax you don't have to pay, so go and create LLP. And after that, when you are going to like you're seeking for more funding, like funding can be done to private limited companies, so you can convert your LLP to private limited entity also. So it all depends on the vision which we have for that startup, that whether we should go with like whether I'll be needing funding, whether I'm going to incur profits. So like if we are not going to incur profits, so 30% tax or 25% tax, it does not matter. So I can begin my establishment as an LLP also.
Ma'am,
Please
one.
keep in mind that there are no much compliances if we think on that part. Ki LLP has lesser compliances. So friends, to be very frank, there is not much a difference. There is not much a difference. Yes, there
Ma'am,
was
you said profits. So, like the amount taxed will be the profit, like, or the revenue. If I am selling something for 5,000, selling a service basically. So, will I
okay.
be taxed on the 5,000, or let's say 50 rupees is my profit so on that?
Tax is always levied in a business on the profit. I have a turnover of 20 lakh rupees.
Mhm.
But I have a tax, I have my cost also. I have my employee's salary. I have my raw material, which is amounting to 30 lakh rupees. So in net, I am remaining with 10 lakhs. Sorry, my pen is not working properly. So in net, I am left with a loss of 10 lakh rupees. So under income tax, tax is always levied on your profit or loss. So loss में तो tax नहीं मांग सकते. They ask on the profit only. So in this case, you don't have to pay any tax. In case there has been a profit, supposingly there has been a cost which is 10 lakh rupees. So net on net 10 profit, you have to pay the tax. So tax is always levied on profit only. And in case there is a loss, the company is going in loss. So the government has a heart. Government says that if you are incurring loss, so don't pay us any tax. So please be very clear that tax will be levied only when we are going to have any profits, and profits will be turnover minus cost. It doesn't mean that in next year, if you're going to have a 10 lakh turnover and you have a cost of 20 lakh rupees, so you have to pay tax on 10 lakh rupees. No, you will not be required to pay any tax because you do not have any profits in that year. Hope this
So, ma'am,
suffice.
yes, ma'am. So, ma'am, technically, the companies like Ola aren't even paying tax, or like,
Aren't paying any tax. Correct. Correct. If you for many companies, the annual reports are available on the portal. So yes, they are not paying any tax because they're incurring losses. Though they are having like crores turnover, but yes, the government is not getting any tax from them. Reason being because they're under heavy losses.
understood, ma'am.
Then moving forward, just a thing which I will brief, a basic concept, like when we have collected the questions, this question also came upon that what is income tax and what is GST. Like many people think कि GST मेरे pocket से जा रहा है. So I'll just have a quick brief about the understanding which you guys have, that GST, is it a burden on my private limited entity? Like for income tax, I understand कि yes, it is a burden on my pocket. I have to pay 30% tax from my pocket. But GST also, do you guys think that this is a burden from on my pocket? If the government says that pay 18% GST, this is very much difficult for us. So what do you guys think? That is it, GST is a tax which impacts us a lot, or it does not impact us? Please.
As a customer or as a business?
You can write over chat so that it would be easy for me to read also. I'm waiting for your answers. Okay. So for GST, to be very clear, it is not a tax which has to be paid by us from our pocket. This is not a tax which is to be paid by our pockets. It is just that we collect it from the customer. Like this is very much clear. Like if we can say, I'll just open my whiteboard. Now, opening my whiteboard, I'm just saying that GST is not a tax which a private limited company should much burden upon. Why so? Because see, I am selling, being a private limited company, supposingly I'm providing service to Mr. X. And that Mr. X, I have invoiced him for a service of 1000 rupees. So now, GST is levied at the rate of 18%. What I do is, I just ask him, ki see 18% hai, so 180 rupees you give me. What is the billing that I am doing to him? I am doing him a billing of 1180. Again, it is not. I'm doing him a billing of 1180, and this 180 rupees which I have collected, I paid directly to the government. So this is nothing that I have to pay from my own pocket. I have collected it from Mr. X and I have paid it to government. So this is called as GST. Like since we are going to be a startup, we should be familiar with these terms. GST is in nature of an indirect tax. So the basic concept, the basic idea of GST is that you collect this tax. Being a supplier, you collect this tax from your customer and you pay that tax to the government. Whatever the rate of GST, it does not matter to us. Why? Because it is not hitting our pockets. We are charging it from our customer and then we are giving it to the government. But the point is that this makes our product costlier. Because since it is a tax, initially the customer would have got that product for 1000 rupees, but then now the product is going to be for 1180. Now, if we come towards income tax, what do you guys think? Does it happen in that manner only, or is it different? It is is different. Why it is different? Because income tax says that I have incurred a profit of supposedly 10 lakh rupees. On this, I have to pay income tax at the rate of 25%. This is on profit. Please be very clear, it is on profit. So this 25%, I can't ask from my customers being a private limited entity. I have to pay it from my own pocket. So this is a very basic point about income tax and GST. The models are very different. These taxes are different and their mode of operation is also different. Income tax is something which I have to pay from my own pocket, and GST is something I have to just charge it from my customers and I have to pay it to the government. I have nothing to do. Then moving forward, I will just quickly brief about the few income tax benefits which government has come out for the startups. A very important benefit first is a 3-year holiday, tax holiday. What do they say? That see, if your startup is registered, this is a benefit of getting a startup registered. They say that if you are a startup and you have been incorporated up to 31st March 2022, you have got yourself registered as a startup up to 31st March 2022. So for us, for those startups which are not registered, the time period left is very much less. It is just approximately 4 months. So like if I'm a startup, I'm planning to get myself registered. What benefit government is saying? Government says that in coming 7 years, for 3 years, your profit would be exempt. And this is a very important benefit because government says startup for 3 years your profit would be exempt. Is that basically अगर मुझे starting में if I'm getting a profit of 10 lakh rupees, 20 lakh rupees and then 30 lakh rupees, my entire profit for 3 years would be exempt. So this is a very much good benefit given to startups, and we say that this is a 3-year tax holiday for startups in a block of 7 years. Like from 31st March 2022, supposing I get my startup registered in February 2022. So from February 2022 to next 7 years up to February 2029. If I earn any profit in 3 years, my profit would be exempt. So that is a very big benefit. Then next is an angel tax benefit. Angel tax benefit, this is a bit complicated benefit. Please try if you can grab this. It is basically the DPIIT is saying for the startups to get registered there. What happens is, supposingly I am an investor. Please be a bit focused here. I am an investor and I am investing in your private limited entity. What I am doing is that the value of the share of your company is 1,000 rupees. But I am investing in your company and I am paying for that share 2,000 rupees. Like there is a premium issue and the company asks that, okay, you pay me 2,000 rupees for that particular share. It can obviously happen. So now what the government is saying that whatever is the excess you take from the investor, private limited company, whatever excess you take from your investor above the fair market value of your share. Like my share was valued at 1,000 rupees, but I'm taking from the investor 2,000 rupees. So the government says whatever excess you are taking, you have to pay tax on that. And that is called as angel tax. Why the word angel is used? Because actually, there are investors who are considered as angel for the startups. So it is called as angel tax. If you get any angel, we are going here to tax them. So what benefit has been given in our income taxes? If we get our startup registered on DPIIT, they say that if your startup is registered over DPIIT, you don't have to pay angel tax. So that is a good benefit which is given to startups. Then last point, that is a very simple point, is carry forward of losses. Like if there is any startup, it can carry forward losses to like supposingly my first year is there and now I'm incurring a loss of 10 lakh rupees. So what can I do is I can carry that loss to next year. Please focus on this point. I'm a private limited company in FY 2021. In FY 2021, I have incurred a loss. How much loss? I have incurred a loss of 10 lakh rupees, supposingly. Now in next year, I have earned a profit of 30 lakh rupees. So what the government is saying, you don't have to pay tax on the entire 30 lakh rupees. They have said 30 minus 10. जो पिछले साल में in the last year which you have earned as a loss now, you just set off with that and you pay tax on 20 lakh rupees. So this is a very good benefit which is given to startups, that we can, provided the shareholding remains the same. This is a condition, but this is a very condition which doesn't get changed. But the startup should know about this, that whatever losses starting ke years when which we are getting as a loss now, we can set off with a profit which is going to which we are going to get in future years. So this is a very important point, ki startups can set off their losses in coming years. So if you early register your startup, just think about this point. If you early register your startup, in starting years we are going to have losses, and since we are going to have losses, government says after 4 years if you have a profit, now you set off that profit with that loss. In 4th year I have a profit of 50 lakh rupees, and in last 4 years, last 3 years, I had a loss of 20 lakh rupees. So what the government has said, it has said you pay tax on 50 minus 20. That is only on net amount 30. So this is the benefit if you register your startup at an early stage. Your losses get carried forwarded. And that is a very important point. This can help you in tax planning. This is the point which people miss. That helps you in tax planning because you can set off the profit with your losses. So this is a very important point which I wanted to cater upon, that whether you should get your startup registered early or you should get your startup registered at a later stage. Then this is the thing which everybody should know about GST, because many startups have a confusion that why you are suggesting us to get registered under GST. Why is it that our turnover is just 5 lakh rupees, but I, being a consultant, always suggest to my clients to get registered under GST at the earliest possible? And these are the things why I suggest, because tomorrow, being a startup, if you're going to an investor, the investor is going to check your registration compliances. The investor is going to check your credibility. And what proves your credibility is that whether we are registered or not, whether we are GST registered or not. Yes, this is a very important thing. If we are going to apply for a bank loan, even the bank says that go and get yourself GST registered first, then only I will sanction your loan. Thirdly, your creditors, your suppliers, the supplier will upfront say, we will deal with only those companies who are registered under GST. Like if you see the big companies like HUL, ITC, they do not have any vendors who are not registered under GST. This is a policy in big companies that they will deal with only those vendors, only those people who are registered under GST. And what is the reason? The reason is just that it increases the tax transparency, it increases the credibility of that company. Because you guys must have heard about many GST frauds happening, fake invoicing happening. So people, in order to save themselves from any investigation in future, they prefer to deal with only those companies, only those entities which are registered under GST. So quickly moving to these points, why startups should obtain GST? It is first that it increases their credibility. Investor suppliers are much inclined to deal with easy sanctioning of loans by banks. Then there is easy sanctioning, GST registration to be obtained if the turnover exceeds 20 lakhs in case of goods or services, to enjoy the tax credit in purchase of goods. This is a very important point, that what is the tax credit in purchase of goods? Friends, it is basically that supposingly I have purchased a fixed asset. A fixed asset as in, supposingly you have purchased for your entity a computer or a laptop, and on that you have paid a GST of, supposedly, I'm taking a very minimal amount, that is 15,000 rupees. Now, if you are not registered entity, you will not be able to take the benefit of the tax which you have paid. What is the meaning of benefit? The benefit is that you can outset your output, supposedly on sale. You have to pay a GST. A very simple example. Supposedly, on sale, we have to pay a GST which amounts to 20,000 rupees. And on purchases, I've already paid a GST of 10,000 rupees. So the government says the net GST to be deposited is 10,000 total. That is, the government says set off your output GST with your purchase GST. So this is the benefit of getting registered under GST at an early stage. That my laptop GST will also come in picture. So this will help in reducing our cost also, because now 15,000 मुझे pocket से 20,000 pay नहीं करना पड़ेगा, only 10,000 I am required to pay. Then lastly, GST compliances, like GST, in GST there will be GST returns.
Excuse me, ma'am.
And multiple returns.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, can you kindly explain that again, the laptop thingy?
Yeah, I will just explain the laptop thing. Supposingly, I'm a private limited company and I have made a sale. I have made a sale on which I am required to pay GST to the government of 20,000 rupees. Okay. Now, being a private limited company, I have also purchased a laptop. Now, when I have purchased that laptop, I must have, being a customer, I must have paid GST. When I have purchased that laptop, I have paid GST to the vendor from whom I am purchasing. Supposedly 5,000 GST I have paid. So now, what the government is asking from the private limited company, should the private limited company pay 20,000 rupees from its pocket? No. The government says, see, 5,000 you have paid on your purchases. So now you deposit me only 15,000. That is 20 minus 5, net 15. But when does the government allow us to reduce this 5,000? Only when we are GST registered. We have made GST purchases. If we are not registered under GST, this 5,000 benefit will not be allowed to us. So this, what we can say is, this is simple. This is simple set off. That on sale, if you have to pay GST, just reduce the GST which you have paid on your purchases. Yeah, this is in nature of tax rebate. Is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now,
Thanks a lot.
let's cater to your questions. This was all from our side.
Ma'am, just in side, when as a I purchase some
Your voice is not audible. I will just quickly cover just one more point about import and export. Like many startups also say that we have to bring a machinery, we have to import. So how should we import? What is the criteria? So this is the thing that just to obtain an import export code, this is a separate thing which has to be done. This is an import export code to be done. There are few documents like bill of entry, bill of lading which are to be filed. And import duty. The important point is about the taxes. Yes. जब भी आप कोई सामान बाहर से, whenever you are some material is being imported, you have to pay import duty and you have to pay IGST. This is a burden because government says don't ask for people from outside to pay to bring material. So they are imposing an import duty on us. Even if we are asking for material from outside, we have to pay an import duty. This is a very important point. So it becomes very costly for us, the imported products. And then there is a portal which is called as SWIFT, on which the importers can fulfill all the compliances. So the important part is that you have to obtain an import-export code, and then there is a window. Then last is about export. Export, in our export also the things are the same, pretty same. In export also we have to give a import-export code, then there are legal compliances. Then there is a list of documents which is to be furnished. And lastly, exports, the best part is exports pay, you don't have to pay any tax. The best part is this. On imports, you have to pay import as well as you have to pay the GST, whereas on exports, you don't have to pay anything. The government has said, Jao, 0%. It is like you don't just go and spread the word that India is going to get global. So government has said that don't pay any tax on that. Okay, now let's begin with the session. Queries from your end? Please, either you can
Ma'am,
open your mic or yeah.
Ma'am, if I own a private entity, private limited entity, what is the procedure to get it registered under DII, DPIIT or startup? Like registered as a startup?
Yeah, as a startup, if you are registered as a private limited entity, so there is a particular criteria which has to be fulfilled to be registered as DPIIT. You can fill the application there, okay, and then like I have just given in this, because there are many benefits if we get registered as a DPIIT recognized startup. So like if you can just go to that website of DPIIT, there is a tab in which they say apply, and they require for the requisite documents. Like they will ask for your incorporation certificates. So everything you upload, and then like they will just process those documents, and then based on the criteria if you fulfill, they will give you that recognition.
So, ma'am, like if I'm like private limited company, but my compliances are not up to the mark, like but my documents are not up to the mark to be registered as a startup, DPIIT startup registered. So, will I get any of those benefits like the
No,
tax
they will not give
redemption?
you that recognition. They will not give you that recognition.
So,
The
I
point
won't be
is that
considered. Then I won't be considered as a startup anymore in India, right?
correct, correct.
But ma'am,
Yeah,
but I saw, but I visited the portal of Startup India, and I found out like only few startups got registered as Startup India recognized. So what about the others who are not like which are not registered under that? Aren't they considered startups?
actually, DPIIT is basically the government is giving some incentives to startups. There are many startups who are getting some benefits from government. It doesn't mean that if you are not registered under DPIIT, you will not be considered as a startup. You will be considered as a startup, but the only thing is that the benefits which the government has, some extra benefits which are given to DPIIT startups, that will not be available to those startups who are not registered on DPIIT. It is as simple as that. Like government कुछ extra benefits देना चाहती है, so you have to fulfill that criteria. If you don't fulfill under income tax, you will get your benefit. It is not that you will not get your benefit. But you will not get the angel tax exemption. That is an important point. Angel tax exemption is available only to those who are DPIIT registered.
That tax.
Your voice was breaking in between. Could you just pardon?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Could you just pardon? Your voice was breaking.
Yeah. So, like, will I get that benefit like the tax redemption thing? Like, if in this financial year, if I'm registered loss of like 10 lakhs, and in the next financial year I'm registering of 20 lakhs, then the net profit, like,
Yes, you will get that benefit. You
if I'm
will get that
registered
benefit.
just being as a private limited entity, right? Not
Yes.
registered as a startup India. Okay,
Yes.
that's for like you just have to register the thing, and then I'm eligible for that. Just the angel tax is missing, right?
Angel tax. Correct. Correct.
Got it. Thanks a lot, ma'am.
Ma'am, is it possible for us to get funding from investors if we are registered ourselves as partnership firms?
No, investors don't seek for people who are registered as partnership firms. It is very rare that investors invest in an entity who are registered as partnership. They preferably prefer either private limited or LLPs.
Okay. Ma'am, one thing, for the DPIIT recognition, is it a one-time process, or after that, do we need to follow some, like, are there some compliances or not?
No, recognition is a one-time process.
Ma'am, do we have to apply to DPIIT like personally, or then do we have to consult a CA or something for that?
It all depends, like what to say on this. It all depends, like how much you can do on your part.
Got it.
Okay, ma'am. So, just one last thing. I think like we all have this one thing, like just to become clear than what to choose, either LLP or private limited, and what are the steps. Although you have covered everything, but can you give us a brief summary type, basically, that after the registration process, what are gonna be doing monthly? Or on an annual basis, what extra compliances do the directors need to follow? What will be the estimated cost incurring for that, how much amount we are going to pay to CA, or how much amount we are going to pay to government, like monthly and yearly, and what extra measures do the directors of the company, or what extra headache is going to be there? And what is the difference, or like what are going to be the difference if choosing LLP instead of private limited in these kind of things? Was I, ma'am, clear enough?
Yeah, you're pretty clear about your question. So I'll just ask whether he'll just ponder upon, like I have much spoken on this. So he also has some points. So he'll just make you guys a bit clear on this.
Surely.
So yeah, thank you, Garima. As she has already told you, LLP and a company, be it a private or be it a public limited company, they both tend to form part of a corporate setup, a more structured form of a setup than compared to those of a proprietorship or a partnership simply. So as far as the costs are concerned, so see, there are some compliances as far as a public limited company is concerned. So compliances for those types of companies bit on a higher side. There are frequent compliances to be made, and if it is listed one, so then there are additional compliances to be made. Going down the line, private limited has a bit of a less compliances, and LLP has the least compliances to be made. So these are as far as the corporate setup is concerned. Now, if you come under the partnership, so partnership for a partnership concern, so as such, there is no compliances to be made as far as the ministry is concerned. So ministry related compliances are not there for a partnership kind of a firm. Only the compliances are in form of your annual filings, annual income tax returns, ITR filings, and similar is the case for a proprietorship. So now when you ask me about the cost for a LLP or for a company, so that is strictly it depends upon the advisor that you are hiring. Fees, as far as fees are concerned, so there is no benchmark to the fees as such. So like you go to a doctor, each doctor has his own set of fees, so that is purely dependent upon the advisor you choose. So but as far as the number and the quantum of compliances are concerned, so that I have already mentioned you the hierarchy as to what bears the most compliances and which has pretty less number of compliances to be made.
Sir, can you just elaborate on what these compliances are for private limited, LLP, or anything?
Yeah. Speaking about a private limited company, so for a private limited company, there are annual auditing of your financial statements. So for that, chartered accountant has to be appointed mandatorily, because a CA can only rather audit your books of accounts. So after auditing of your statements, you have to file the returns to the income tax department. Then those audited statements are filed with the MCA, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, that is ROC. Then there are some additional compliances in respect of your annual information that you have to apprise the ROC about the changes that has happened in the past 1 year, because that is an annual affair. Then you have to also file statements like your deposits that you have taken during the year. That is a DPT3 form that you have to file. Then there's an annual KYC in respect of directors, the directors who are there in your company. So for those, you have to make an one-time annual KYC, intimating the ministry if there is any change in respect of the particulars of the directors who are there in your company. So, and then there are specific forms that depends upon the activity that takes place, and then they trigger basically when that event happens. So like you are taking a borrowing, you borrow a money, then you have to make a filing in that respect. You take there's a creation of charge on your assets, again that is related to the borrowing. So there are other also so things which I am going to, if I'm going to explain you, then it will become quite complex for you. But then all I mean to say is, then there are compliances to be made, but strictly as far as the compliances that I spoke about the annual filing, those are the things that have to be mandatorily be filed by any kind of a company.
Sir, so based on compliances, you'd say that LLP has fairly less number of compliances that we have to follow?
Comparatively less, as I said. For LLP also, there is an annual statement that you have to file. So that has to be filed in case of a LLP. And also there's one kind of one you have to file the financial statements, and the other you have to make a submission about the affairs that has taken place in your whole out year. So there are two forms that has to be filed mandatorily in case of a company, but otherwise the events are comparatively less in case of a LLP as compared to an company. So there are pretty less number of events when you have to make a submission in case of an LLP.
Sir, final doubt. Hello. Sir, like what if we are not registered under DPIIT? Will we get that 3-year exemption from tax thing, like just like entitled as a private limited entity?
Yeah, I believe Garima, you should take this.
Yeah. See, basically,
Hello.
there is an exemption.
Hmm. Ma'am,
Basically,
ma'am,
my
your
voice is
voice is,
audible.
yeah, it's kind of crumbling, ma'am.
Okay,
It's fine now. It's fine now.
it's fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So the point is that under income tax, there has been an exemption which is called as 80IAC exemption. So 80IAC Income Tax Act came out with this exemption, and it said that this rebate of 100%, like if you are a startup and which has been incorporated in between this period, April 1, 2016 to 31st March 2022. So only then the tax benefit of 3 years in a block of 7 years would be allowed. And the condition is that you have to be providing an annual turnover that should not exceed 25 crores in any financial year. So this tax benefit came out with those startups which have been incorporated in 1st April to 31st March 2022 only. So this ATIAC, when we come to DTIIT, see, when does a startup get that recognition? It is a startup. It comes when it is getting that DPIIT registered thing. But if we talk about the like these benefits, like the angel tax or like it is a 3-year block holiday or it is set off and carry forward of losses, a status of startup will come only when it is DPIIT startup. Otherwise, it would be any private limited entity which is registered.
Okay, I got it. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
So, ma'am.
Any other query?
I believe somebody is asking. Your voice is not clear. It's quite low. Meanwhile, we have a question in chat box. Is our PAN connected somehow to a company? So actually PAN is, if you go by its full form, permanent account number. So any PAN is basically allotted to a any entity that has an existence in eyes of income tax department. So if you are an individual, there you have a PAN allotted to you. You have a company, be it a company, LLP, partnership, or any other kind of a formal incorporation. So that will necessarily have to take a PAN number so that they can make a necessary filings with the income tax department. So the any communication made with the income tax department is made through the help of PAN. PAN is your identification number, basically with the income tax department.
Sir, hi. I asked this PAN question because since I'll be joining my job pretty soon, and they have this conflict of interest where you can't do startup or anything like that. So I was asking for that. Will there be legal issues? Like, will they find out about that, etc.? Like about background check?
So you mean to say that you want to pursue your job and also want to keep yourself engaged in a startup? Am I correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Actually, purely it is a contractual issue. So as far as any PAN thing is concerned, so it won't come in between. I mean, there's no PAN as such, any PAN thing whatsoever related in this scenario. But it is truly purely a contractual obligation that you can your employer can at one point in time can refer the contractual obligation that you might enter at this moment.
Like, how
Then as
will
such,
they find out about this?
so PAN is not something with which they will be able to find it as anyhow, because PAN is your interaction with the income tax department. So with
Okay,
PAN,
okay.
they can't gather any of your personal information. Your personal information remains with you only. With your PAN number, any of your employer cannot as such access your personal information. But then, if you ask me how they can find out, so it is circumstantial. Any
Okay, okay.
circumstances as might occur, as might arise, anyhow they come to know. So it is purely a contractual matter.
To this thing, I would add one more thing, like supposedly your startup is a private limited company. So, see if they come to know about your private limited entity name. So, this company's database is available on the portal and everybody can access that. Like who are the directors and about the company. So, from that, like if they get the name of that company and you are a director in that company, they can get to know about this because this database is available in an open.
Okay, okay. So,
Like,
okay, cool.
so be very sure that you don't create a private limited entity, or if you create, you should not be a director in that entity because only data of director is available. The data of other members is not available.
So, in this case, so should we go for LLP instead to be on safer side?
So for LLP also you have a
Data
DIN allotted.
Data is available for LLP also. The data is available, and for your companies also, the director data is available.
Okay.
But anyhow, that situation would only arise when the
Get to know the name of your company.
get to know your name of the company, and they have a suspicion on you that you are also engaged somewhere else.
Okay.
Meaning thereby that it is nowhere linked to PAN, but yes, other ways are also there through which they can find out.
Ma'am, there's one thing, like this seems like a legal issue also, like if I have signed a contract with a company that I won't do any startup.
Yeah, that is the thing that is legally
So,
the only yes it is.
okay, so ma'am, what basically I wanted to ask is that a lot of people I have seen who are doing 9 to 5 jobs are starting their own startups themselves. So how like if I join the company first and maybe 1 year later I am starting, then is it okay? Like how they are doing it legally?
Legally, this is nothing which is legal. They have not
Mhm.
disclosed to their companies that they are engaged in their startups. See, everybody is doing like this only, and the COVID time has like made us realize that yes, we can handle 2 jobs simultaneously. So this is a
Okay.
thing which is not legally allowed, but yes, people are doing. They are managing their time. That's it.
Okay, so basically they are doing it on their own and staying on the safer side that uh, company hopefully doesn't find out.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I can add is that as such, there is no law which prohibits you to engage in two practices at the same moment. But it's only by virtue of a contract that you enter with your employee that in case the employee catch holds that you are also engaged in some sort of an activity in your private capacity, they can challenge you on part of the contract that you have entered with them. So your employee letter, your basically your contract of employment with them, they defines and they stipulate the condition upon you that you cannot do a job anywhere beyond the company with which you are engaged. So that is purely decided on the base of the contractual contract of your employment. That's it, and there is no as such any law that bars you from getting engaged in any kind of two activities, or rather many of the activities as such. So until and unless it is written into your contract, it remains only a verbal sort of an agreement. And if it is not there in your contract, so you don't need to worry.
Okay, thank you, sir and ma'am.
Rather, income tax department is so happy that you are engaged in so many activities because you tend to pay taxes more taxes to them. So while they have any issue with that.
Okay, sir. And one thing regarding the contact info given here, when we can contact you guys for anything else, like timing, basically prefer timings and prefer mode. Should we call you directly or?
No, yeah, you're most welcome to call us anytime, or you can even drop us a mail. So we can come back to you. You can post your query over there on the email, or you can simply drop us a WhatsApp.
Mhm. Okay, we can
We
WhatsApp.
will definitely get back to it. Like in future also, you guys have any queries, so we'll be happy to answer all.
Understood.
Do CAs also have any benefits for startups?
CA also have.
Do we also have benefits from CAs in this startup?
No, I didn't get your question. You say that we also get to engage in the startup, or what you say?
No, can startups also get benefits from CAs like we get from
Of course,
income
why
tax
not?
department?
We are providing you benefits only. We are here to provide you
Your all the
benefits.
finances part are handled by a chartered accountant. Your tax compliances, your annual, like I said, only and only a chartered accountant can audit your financial statements in India, rather anywhere in the world. So, like here in India, we have a chartered accountants. Otherwise, in many country, we are called certified CPA,
Certified
public accountants. Yes. So we are designated by the government as such to only and only sign the financial statements.
And yes, for like maintaining your accounts and giving you the clear picture of how your funds are being mapped, we will strongly suggest that yes, you need chartered accountants.
The sign is anyways required, so we are gonna need them. So do we need chartered accountants for monthly filings also?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, like in income tax and GST, obviously this is a thing which is a knowledge to be kept by a chartered accountant only. So he will not only because there are things under GST like the wrong rates are being charged by the clients or the transactions are not correctly reported. So there are errors which are being committed. So these are the things which are done by CAs only.
understood.
Ma'am, considering the fact that we are just startups now, when should be the first time that we engage with a CA and get these filings underway? And
As far as your,
how often should we do it?
no, actually, it is on purely on a need basis. So right from the incorporation of your startup, if you go for an incorporation, be it LLP, private limited company, or any company whatsoever, so you'll require a help of a chartered accountant, undoubtedly. So rather, we also have to sign your initial documents on the basis of which your company gets registered with the MCA. So, and otherwise, it is as far as signatures are concerned. So many a time it would so happen that you'll require a signature of any kind of a professional. So chartered accountants are the ones who are almost eligible to put signatures mostly on any kind of a documents as far as are concerned in India. Otherwise, any compliance on a compliance part, yeah, definitely chartered accountants are there for you to help. Otherwise, if your company is quite big enough, you can also have some of a kind of employees who are looking after that part of compliances on your part.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So once you actually tend to start your thing, so you are going to you will require the help of consultants, basically, not exactly to say chartered accountants. So be it in form of a GST compliances. So these are purely compliances part that I am saying. So compliance is in form of your monthly filings in GST, in income taxes in form of TDS. So those are the things wherein basically a professional like us comes to your rescue.
Any other queries? I think we have responded to all the queries which were shared with us from our in the chat box.
Thank you, ma'am. And I just wanted to say one thing, ma'am. This was a very informative session. I have talked to CAs before, and they usually don't tell anything and even directly ask, oh, what is gonna be your authorized capital, and forget telling me that part. So, like this session, I have found it very useful. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So wish you all the very best for your startups, guys. And we'll be happy to connect with you in the coming days. If you need any help, we'll be happy to help.
One more question. So,
Yeah.
how long do you think it would take for us to get ourselves registered as an LLP or a private limited company?
7 to
Like
10
if
days
say,
it approximately takes. 7 to 10 days, because the
okay,
first thing
okay,
is about the DSC, then we have to get the director number, then we have to apply. So after application also they take time for processing. So approximately it takes 7 to 10 days to get registered.
okay, thank you.
Okay. So shall we end up with this session?
Yes, Garima. So, thank you very much. Definitely, it was
Yeah.
quite learning a lot, like for the participants' sake of point. And also, we have covered all the questions that has been asked from the participant while registering to this event. So,
Yes.
And I will also convey the message to our teams also if they are looking for some any sort of any concern regarding the registration of their startup, and also they will feel free to reach to your team or to you. And I will be also going to share your LinkedIn profile to them.
Certainly.
Thank you so much, Vaibhav and Garima and all the participants for joining in. And it was definitely a good and learning session for all. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
It was a pleasure.